other than my sister, Diane Henderson. And,
blood sister?
oh yeah.
We don't look like I guess, huh?
Is she older than you, Michael, or younger?
Younger. Now, Diane is an interview master and just a warm and compassionate human being that's used that in her career to great success. How about that? I didn't even write this. She works for the public health. She works for the Public Health Institute and is an epidemiological supervisor of interviewers. And then Diane's she's gonna tell you about her job. She's been a little concerned that it may not be design related, but it's our job to just have Diane describe what she does and how she does it so well, and then we're the ones that synthesize and have this make sense to us as designers. So without anything further, Diane, do you want me to say anything further?
No, that's good. Great. Thank you very much, Michael. Okay, so I work on the West Coast, and here's what I'm going to tell you about the kind of work that we've been doing in research, and our goal has been to get certain information about sober living homes. We've been working on sober living homes. We have a tremendous problem in California with overcrowding of the prisons. They're designed for X amount of people, and they have at least twice as many as they have beds, prisoners there. And the initial study that I worked in, so I'm going to tell you about that, and then I'm going to tell you why we use qualitative interviewing in an attempt to find out what the barriers are to increasing the number of sober living homes. So a sober living home is basically where you have 6 unrelated adults that are addicts that are attempting sustained sobriety. And our initial study was studying 200 people, looking at them 6, 12, and 18 months after they've been in a sober living home. Sober living home, just in a nutshell, is a place where they support each other unbelievably 24 hours a day with AA. You walk in and you can feel the unbelievable warmth and support and compassion and humility of these people that have been beaten down, gone to the bottom, and are doing everything they can to maintain their sobriety. And there's a tremendous beauty in that. So having said that, we looked at whether living in a sober living home was a predictor for sobriety 6, 12, and 18 months down the road. In fact, it was. I won't go into that a whole lot. So now what we're looking at are what are the barriers to having more of these rather than having recidivism and people going back to the prisons. I mean, I would go to prisons and see these people that were there for grass or just different things in these hideous conditions that certainly were not conducive to sustained sobriety. So our goal is to find out what are the barriers. And stop me at any time. I have little notes, so I think I can go back to where I was if you have any questions. So we're looking at what are the barriers to creating more of these sober living homes. Currently, you're paroled from prison, you get $200, you go to the bus stop, and there's the guy with $200 worth of meth, coincidentally. And that's pretty much the way it is right now in California. So we're looking at another study where we're going to have $200, go ahead to the bus stop versus another group that has the $200, goes into a sober living home with managed care that will take care of jobs, medical, dental, all that stuff. Okay, so we want to know about the barriers. So now we're interviewing. This is my job. This is where I come in with other interviewers, and we're in Sacramento right now, and we're interviewing policymakers to find out what it is they know or don't know about sober living homes. We also interview neighbors of these sober living homes. You may have, I don't know if they have them around here.
They do.
They do? Not a halfway house. Very, very
Oh.
Yeah, there are distinctions.
What's the difference?
Halfway houses are, okay, a sober living home is where you have 5 or 6 unrelated adults. Because of the codes, you can only have 6 unrelated adults in one home, and they go about their business. They might be enrolled at uArts, they might be working, they might be independently wealthy, but it's 6 adults living in a home. So that's all it is, and they all support each other, and typically they have a rule that they go to AA, NA, Elementary P, whatever the 12-step program is that they need to go to at least once or twice during the week. And so we interviewed them, we interviewed neighbors, and we interviewed policymakers. So the qualitative interview.
And what's a halfway house?
You know, I'm not even really sure. It's like where they get treatment. Go ahead.
Well, a halfway house is where they're about to let you out on parole, and
so the idea is that they integrate you back into society from prison, so you're not just going, I mean, that's the idea,
Yes.
it's kind of bullshit, but like, you live in a house, like, it's basically a prison where you're allowed to, or like forced to go outside every day and try to find a job.
Exactly. And you typically go back into the same environment that pretty much contributed to the situation that got you addicted and into prison, or where you're comfortable getting addicted. Exactly. So halfway houses, I don't know, I'm sure there have been studies, I haven't been involved in them, but they aren't. The sober living home, SLHs is what they call them, actually, and there are lots of studies on it if you just Google it. And I'm sure everybody here knows somebody or is related to somebody, I mean, just everybody is, that has had problems with addiction to whatever. And when I've interviewed people, they've said to me, because the rapport is so unbelievable sometimes, the last guy I interviewed said to me, are you one of us? And I said, not yet. I mean, who knows? You know, you never really know. So, so that's the distinction between the two. Okay. So what emerges from a qualitative interview? For instance, with the neighbors, most people, myself included, there's an acronym NIMBY, N-I-M-B-Y, not in my backyard. The truth is, we probably all have drunks, addicts, whatever, all around us. But if somebody says you're going to have a house full of recovering addicts next to you, for some reason it's counterintuitive, but it's like, not in my backyard. I don't want someone like that there. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. Can I just, yeah.
Go ahead.
Anybody want to say anything about any of that, or ask anything about any of it? Okay, so for instance, my parents, 92 and 88, across the street, lovely home, they've been in there since 1954, suddenly across the street, a bunch of drunks, you know, and I'm thinking, God, I really never wanted a sober living home around, but wouldn't that be nice if we had one there? But it's still a really difficult thing for us to kind of conceptualize. So, back to qualitative interviewing. We interviewed neighbors. We wanted to know if you really have a sober living home in your neighborhood, what is it like? So now here's where, with qualitative interviewing, typically you're going to have a list of questions, and they're really just vehicles. And I'm going to, yes?
So did these people know that it was a sober living home? Or just like, what do you guys think about your neighbors over there?
We would ask them. That's a real good question. I'm going to pull up the one right now from, I'll tell you what we said to them. Most of them did. Okay, for instance, this is our guidelines. Okay, so your neighbor, and I say to you, what do you know about sober living homes in your neighborhood? And they're going to tell you nothing, or and then how did you find out about it? Describe when and first you found out. How are they as neighbors? Now this is what we ask, okay? Have you or other neighbors had complaints? Describe any specific problems that you've noticed. These are not yes and no answers. These are really much room for conversation, mono conversation. Describe any interactions that you've had with the sober living home in your neighborhood. What type of impact have the sober living homes had on your neighborhood? Explain and describe any specific examples. What do you think about alcohol and drug use in your community? Describe any specific ways that you think the sober living homes impact alcohol and drug use. What do you think could improve sober living homes' impact on your neighborhood? What do you think could be done? What do you think about sober living homes compared with other approaches to addiction, like formal treatment or criminal justice consequences? And what emerged out of this is really useful information that we would have never predicted from neighbors. I will say out of 20 neighbors, and this has nothing to do with the design, but I'll tell you about the result, and then I'm going to really tell you how to do qualitative interviews, okay? Or the way I do them. So what emerged, out of all 20 neighbors that we've interviewed that live next to a sober living home, there's a stage 1 and a stage 2. Stage 2 is what I described as 6 unrelated adults in a home. All 20 were so positive, we were shocked. I truly thought, how many people would think that you'd be thrilled to have a sober living home next to you? I wouldn't think that. How many think that you would not necessarily choose, if given a choice in your neighborhood, to have a sober living? If you voted, how many would like to have a sober living home next to you? Or within a block? Yeah, me too. Well, these people, all 20 neighbors, beautiful neighborhoods, by and large, preferred them to a lot of other neighbors. There was not a negative thing said, and we randomly went to different doors. I mean, this took months to do. there were two instances. One woman said they were tremendous. She really appreciated the role model that they were for her teenage sons, because the kids know that they're recovering. And by and large, they, okay, I'll give you one instance that I would have never thought. There was a guy from Nigeria, worked for the state of California in some kind of high-tech field, gentleman. Interviewing him, what emerged when the question was, described a positive interaction with a sober living home. He said in the middle of the night, his wife, now poor guy, I think the guy was very innocent, because I've been around a lot of heroin addicts, I've done counseling, all kinds of stuff. This guy was very, very sweet, very professional, had been in this country probably for about 5 years. His wife, who probably was on meth, and he probably didn't know it, just from the description, in the middle of the night came, oh my God, just like ripped his clothes. They'd been having little problems with their marriage. Ripped his clothes so that basically he was naked except for his shorts, and they had blood on him because it's not funny, but she'd been, hitting him. And he said, in his accent, he said, so I left my house, and where am I going to go? It's 1:30 in the morning. I'm a very black man. I have white pants with blood. He said, so I go to the man next door who has always said hello. He took me in. He counseled me. He said, do not go back. You may hit her. Then you will be deported. Just stay here. He said he counseled me. He made me call 911. We sat together until the police came and everything was taken care of. And he said this man had so much compassion, and it is then I found out it was a sober living home. And there were a couple of, that was the most dramatic one. There were other instances, but by and large, most of them said just they were quiet, wonderful neighbors, kept a very clean home. They wished there were more of them because they minded their own business, and if you needed them, they were there. So that was the story there. Okay, so the way to do the qualitative, now I'm going to move on. Any questions from you? Okay. Okay, I had a professor that I loved, Dr. Seitz. He was from Hopkins, and he said that a true sign of genius is someone that can explain anything to anybody. Someone that can make things simple. That basically a monkey can make things more complicated. And when you deal with the state, you deal with bureaucracies and all that, you can see where the complications certainly are there. And anyway, so the reason I bring that up is that it's really simple. And I'm no genius, but it is, I love to just stick to simple. The way to do qualitative interviews is to definitely have very well thought out questions that you're either going to stick to or not. Is that you look at a person and you create who they are. You make up a story in your mind, and I just do this naturally. I mean, it's something that I just do. I actually was a commodities broker at one point. And I sold options on gold, silver, and platinum. And it was on the phone. So I was successful, but I left because it was crazy. But the success was that I would hear a person's voice, and I would immediately, and it just kind of comes naturally, but I really want to share it because you can do this. I would make up what they looked like, what color hair, if they were sitting down, if they had glasses, if they had a lot of kids, if they were conservative, probably had TV stocks. You can really, really do that. I can make up a story about anybody in the room. And the point is not to be right or wrong. The point is to truly, truly be engaged and interested in your listener or in the other person. In fact, I'm thinking, okay, how much time do I have, by the way?
Lots.
Oh, really? I'm done. No. Okay.
Like another 30 minutes.
Wow, okay. So, what we could do, okay, look, I'm thinking about Marcia, who I've never met. And I'm thinking that maybe even your professors might want you to, as an assignment, just make up a story about Marcia. Like, here's what I'm wondering about Marcia. If I saw Marcia, I would wonder, how long have you been in a wheelchair? What happened before that? Were you born normal? How many people in your family? Are you marginalized or really, really loved by your family? Are you an only child? Where is your family? Do you have animals? Where did you go to school? So many things like that. Has your hair always looked like that? Were you ever into doing nails? Just so many different things. Immediately, I would wonder those things about her. And I would recommend, whether you get it as an assignment or not, that you might even think about writing a story about her. And it's not about, oh, do I have a person, an actor, Marcia, and let me write a story. No, it's actually that person. What do you really think about that person? Because that forces you to lean and think and engage. I also taught English as a second language. California has an awful lot of immigrant children, and it was to little children. And I noticed that there's a lot of marginalization of people that have challenges or disabilities, whatever you want to call it, people that speak different languages. Our own mother was from Northern Ireland and had an accent, and she was marginalized. I mean, as a kid, you know that. So with these kids at school, people would say, I don't know what they're saying. And I was like, are you kidding? I didn't swear. It was just shocking to me. Truly all you do is you lean. Mentally, physically, you listen. You will always know what the person's saying. Rhyme, if you don't know exactly what they're saying, make up something that rhymes with it, but stay engaged. You will know what these people are saying. They're trying to communicate. So I was thinking this. I was thinking that I could actually do this with somebody. Somebody else. We could make up a story about each other. Should I do that?
Do you want to bring somebody up?
If anybody wants it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to write about you or anything, but I'm going to give you an example. If anybody wants to volunteer.
Yeah.
And I'll just make up a story about you. Come on.
Make up a story about me.
Okay. And then I want somebody to make up a story about me.
Now, hey Diane, remember our discussion about the story, that just to elaborate on that it's not about right, that it's a
Yes, exactly.
that allows you.
You can do that even. Okay, so what we're doing here is...
Just sit down.
Honey, anything you want to do, that'll give me more information. Okay, so what we're doing is, the story does not matter. I never knew. The guy that wanted to fly me out to New York when I was doing commodities, I had no idea if he was tall or short, but I knew what I thought about him. And the point was that I was engaged. I spent time thinking about him, whereas if I had not spent time thinking about him, it would have been a different relationship. Does that make sense? Kind of? It's kind of like, and I've forgotten her name, where is she? The person with the, it's not the same.
Which one? Caitlin?
Yeah, Caitlin, right?
Raise your hand,
Okay,
Kate.
like when we talked and you said you got the feeling, I was asking you questions, you got the feeling that when the person was writing down or typing in the answers when you were giving your feedback about a product, it didn't sound like they were engaged at all. You were wondering if they were typing the recipe for their dinner that night or something, you know? Well, that's the point, is that it eliminates that. If in fact that person had been looking at her and thinking, here's this young girl, high school, not in high school, you know, an only child, whatever, her mother signed her up, she'd probably rather be out with her friends or doing whatever people do, it would have been a very different connection. I doubt that Caitlin would have wondered, oh, is she typing out her recipe for tonight's dinner? So the whole idea, especially in today's society where we could be standing next to each other and he's texting somebody in California and I'm talking to, you know, somebody over here, there's very little engagement. Very, very little engagement. And I think it's extremely valuable in qualitative interviewing. Okay, so this is the first part, and then I'll interview somebody too, I guess, to show you what a qualitative interview is like. But this is the building block, and this is the, it's just all the groundwork. It really is. It's the basement, it's the foundation. Okay, this guy right here. Okay, let me just think. Now, okay, so let me just think about your Okay, probably, now, and it doesn't have to be accurate, okay? So
Oh, that's cool. I like my made-up life.
Okay, good. Okay.
It looks like you're going to hypnotize them.
Gonna help. Okay, so I'm just thinking, probably, I'm just thinking about your high school years and stuff, and how many kids. Here's what I'm thinking about. How many kids in the family? Okay, so I'm thinking you're not an only child. I'm thinking there is probably, and this is just how I think, probably a sister involved. I'm not quite sure, but there might be a sister. Probably very bright in high school, but not super, super academic. Probably, my guess would be involved in some extracurricular activities. I'm not thinking football for some reason. I could be dead wrong there. But something where there's teamwork. Football? Okay, good. But something where there's teamwork, maybe, I don't even know, where it's at some sort of, any extracurricular activities would be with others that are individuals that you can communicate with. Let me think what else. Probably has no, well, this is, okay, so I guess, probably doesn't really realize that he is very handsome and appeals to people. Probably doesn't really think I'd be thinking that, I really would. Because there are some guys that are, you know, I am smugly, you know, but he seems like probably isn't really as aware of that. Probably really has intimate friends that he trusts. And probably friendly with maybe a lot of people, but does have just a very few people that he really, truly trusts. And what else would I think about? And that's without even hearing anything other than the assignment. But do you get the point? And then I do want to find out how close I am. But it's just sort of like you, I mean, I've really thought a lot about him. And he probably would be, without me saying it out loud, if I were doing all that, I'd be thinking that, you know, while we're together, and then I'd be interviewing you, and it would be a very different interview than if I just were, hi, what age are you, and like that. Does that make sense? Okay, so?
Well, I do have a little sister, and yeah, I never liked high school. It was always terrible, but I went to a really academic school, so it was extra difficult. And yeah, I was always like skateboarding, running around, exploring the city where I grew up. So.
And intimate friends.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I have like 2 or 3 people that I really trust, and everyone else is an acquaintance. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you. I didn't give you a proper handshake.
That was a good one. One pump.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how long.
That was good. Okay, anybody want to make up a story about me? But when you're that engaged,
Come on.
when you're that engaged, believe me, you're going to be listening. You're a listener. You're the listener, and you're going to be really, really listening to that person in front of you, whether it's about design, whether it's about whatever it's about, sober living homes, it doesn't really matter. The person at the bank. Okay, come on.
Amanda.
Amanda.
Don't you think?
I won't be hurt. You'll probably be right. You know what I mean? Whatever you say.
Do it.
Is there anybody else that would rather? Okay.
Nobody wants to do it. You don't
No,
have to
Amanda
do it.
does.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes,
It's cool, Amanda. It's all right.
No, she's
It's
I
okay.
just slap you if it's me.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You wouldn't got it. Come
Or
on.
they could pair up.
How about a grad then?
Or they could pair up even, if you want them to do it with each other.
Well, you were going to, were you going to interview, or you just want them to do what you know?
Whatever you want, because I'm in here doing
Pair up, and then we'll do the interview.
Leon,
But see, they know each other so well.
Oh, you can't do that. They have to be with somebody who knows you.
Yeah. Is there a grad, a brave grad? Dom.
You're never going to see me again. It's really okay.
Nick. Okay, it's Nick.
Yes.
Nick.
Here, no, right here. Right here. The lady in the volunteered. Her.
Nikki.
Yes, Nikki.
Come on up.
Probably scared if you're
Sorry, actually, can we both do it? I don't really know.
fine.
Oh, come on up, Nikki.
I think you have, sorry.
What color is she?
Shouldn't have a curly yet.
You don't know what that means. Auras? You should do like auras.
It's like since season. Anyway, I think you have a lot of life experience. I think you have a taste to travel. You're quite adventurous. But and I know that you have obviously other siblings. I think you're very comfortable in yourself. And you like to share yourself with others. Yeah, I don't know what else.
Okay, let me ask you, what would you wonder about marital status, children, those kinds of things too? Any thoughts on that?
I think you have a stable marriage and that you are a mother. Very free in yourself. Like, free in your personality. Maybe you're interested in sort of spiritual things. I don't know, like the kind of your core and all that. I don't know. Yeah, I do think you're a mother, and I do think you've had a husband for some time. your childhood. I think you had a good childhood. I can see that you guys are quite close, and you're very comfortable in his presence. When you were sitting here, you were very laid back, and your posture was very open, and yeah, relaxed, and yeah, just at one with who you are with the
person that they're with, whether it's an interview or a date or just out in public or shopping. You really do have a beautiful way of engaging with people. Definitely, and that's all it takes. And that will get you very far in life in so many ways, because you take that everywhere you go. Cool. So. That was great. Okay, I forget what's next. But she didn't have to do that. It's awful.
Oh, question in the back.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. Yeah, you're right. But my children, yeah, he's right. Okay. Which now?
Is there a question, Graham?
Oh,
before?
sorry.
Okay, so when you do this, it seems like you do it pretty positively. Do you ever like get negative vibes from people?
Oh, absolutely.
I find myself like I look at people and I'm just like, maybe I'm just like a little bit more cautious or something.
Give me an
I don't
idea.
trust
Like describe
anybody.
something.
Well, I just see people as having like a bad energy, and I judge them right off the bat and be like, stay away. Like, I don't know. Do you ever get that?
Okay,
because you
that-
seem like really nice and stuff.
No, definitely. However, I like drill down with that. I'll go, this is somebody that is really frenetic and negative and angry. Maybe I'm behind him in a supermarket line. I'll still be thinking about him, and I'll think, and I'll look at him and think, oh God, I wonder how. There was a guy actually just the other day in front of me who was half drunk and young and stunk, you know, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's probably homeless. And he was yelling at somebody, and I thought, I bet he's having trouble with his family. I bet he's hurting. Seriously, I'm just a very woman. And I ended up talking to him kind of because he was in front of me. And I don't know, he said, oh, excuse me. I said, oh, that's okay. And I can't remember how we started talking. And sure enough, he was very deeply troubled, and we just had a really positive interaction out of that, you know. And typically, when people do have bad energy, you know, you can just go away. Plenty of times that's the most appropriate thing. But if you're going to interview somebody and they have really terrible energy, it's very useful, again, to keep drilling down, just the way she did, Nikki, right? Just kept going on, and you can go on and just think, what is going on with this guy? Is this guy addicted? Is this guy's, his girlfriend just dumped him? You know, just make stuff up and see if it fits. And that way you're engaged and you're able to interview them. You're actually able to engage with them and interview. And it works even, there was this one guy, alcoholic guy, that I will never forget that I interviewed. In jail and then out of jail. And he said to me, you know, Diane, addicts are very selfish. We're so self-involved, we damage people, we're narcissistic. He said, impatient. He said, so you know what I do? He said, the first thing I do at night, I throw my shoes as far as I can under the bed. So when I get up in the morning, I have to get on my knees. And then that helps remember who's in charge. This was his personal beliefs. So he prayed in the morning. And he said, I want to tell you to do two things. Because this was after the 18 months. So I'd seen him over time. And he said, I want you to get, no, this was after 12 months. He said, after the interview, he said, I want you to get in the slowest line at Costco. You guys have Costco on your right? Get in the slowest line at Costco. And I said, oh my God. You know, because I'm kind of impatient. And he said, and then what I want you to do is get in the slow lane on the freeway. You drive the entire, I don't care where you're going, drive on the slow lane on the freeway. And you will be amazed. It's remarkable what that does for your character and for your patience. And I'm thinking, oh my God, can I do this? So I did do it actually twice in the slow lane. Somehow that kind of, I don't really have the kind of road rage that maybe I did have. And I make stuff up. If somebody cuts me off, I'm like, go ahead. Who knows, you know, they're at the hospital, whatever. And then the Costco thing, so I told him, I said, hey, Mark, I did it. Longest line of Costco, slow lane, and he said, okay, now what I want you to do is, when you're at Costco, and you're the longest line, when you get up there, Diane, what I want you to do now is, you turn around and say to the person behind you, you can go ahead and I'm in no hurry. Now, I haven't been able to do that yet. But he said it is remarkable what it does for your humility, for your patience, for your grace. You know. Okay, I got lost in this. I forget where we really are. Yes.
Question. Can you be completely wrong in this story and it still works, like to engage
Thank you. 100% wrong, and you are still engaged. And what you will find is that as you participate in that kind of engagement, you become, and it's just sort of happens, you more than likely, and more times than not, do become more correct about who that person is. Because in fact, when you're really engaged, you're going to know. I knew he probably had a sister because he's not this tough, like my husband. My husband is like this guy with huge shoulders and just tough, and he's got a brother, and I sometimes wish he had a sister. Because there is just something that a feminine energy being raised with, a feminine energy, and younger is a little bit different than older too, does a little something different than a man that has only had brothers. So you learn those things over time, but I think Michael's point is, it doesn't matter if you are right or wrong. What matters is that you're engaged with that person and who they are. That's really all that matters, that you're interested. Like if somebody came up to you and, I don't know, said, oh, I thought you had 3 sisters. Probably you would think, wow, that person's talking to me, that person's interested in me. That sort of gives you a little bit of an idea of what I'm trying to say here. Yes?
Have you ever offended anyone enough that it's made the interview actually go the wrong, or be harder because you've offended them?
I'm so glad you asked that. I don't tell them any of this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that because I didn't even think, oh my gosh, you could think that I said this out loud. No, I never tell them anything. It's just who I am that I wonder about these people. And then as we're engaged in the interview, it will emerge, you know, who they are. And I sometimes don't even remember. Sometimes I do, though. Oh my gosh, they do have brothers. I didn't think they did. I wonder how that impacted them growing up. I wonder if they were a middle child, you know, like that. So I would never say it out loud. Thank you so much for clarifying that. Never. It's all just for me in order to be engaged in the process of life. And when I'm working and interviewing, in the process of interviewing. Yeah. And you'll find too, you know, waitresses. I mean, I've been a waitress, I've done all kinds of stuff, but I mean, when you think about your waitress who's coming over, you know, gosh, oh, he or she seems really harried, or they're really comfortable. Oh my God, they probably hate their job. It's just, everything's better, it seems. Sounding like very California, but sorry. I don't know what that means.
So when you start to start with someone, do you just like, let's say the person come forward and like looking at the person's gestures and the pictures first, and start to make your story, and through talking you will adjust the story in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all kinds of cues, and it's nonverbal, what you're saying. Those are really nonverbal cues, yeah. It'll be nonverbal cues, it'll be everything, yeah. Maybe even the colors of clothes they wear, you know. Someone maybe that wants to be more in the, you know, not noticed, someone else, you know, everything. So thank you for pointing that out. It is also nonverbal cues, yeah, as well as verbal.
And Diane, can you do this over the phone?
Oh my God, didn't I mention that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because everything seems visual and seems like picking up and reading the person, but if it can happen just over the phone.
Definitely. It happened over the phone when I was a commodities broker. What we would do, people would call and request brochures and information on gold, silver, and platinum. This is after there was a big rise in the silver market back in, like, God, I think the 80s. And so people would call in and ask for information, and then we'd follow up on the call. So it was really tough. But it was really easy for me but I quit because there was too much of a markup and I knew they wouldn't make money. I would call someone over the phone, very polite, ask them if this is a good time to talk, and if it wasn't, find out when it was, and if they didn't want to talk, okay, next. Nothing forceful. But by the sound of their voice, I would picture, are they sitting? Are they standing? Do they have glasses on? Did they work all day? Do they sound tired? How old do I think they are? Because you can tell, you get impressions by a person's voice, and it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. And I remember one guy really clearly, and it just probably like, I don't know how long it was. It wasn't very long, but it was in the first conversation. I was able to realize this guy is someone that would invest very, very, he was very traditional, and I didn't want him to invest in options because they're very, very risky. And the way I found out was, I don't know, I just asked him a few questions. I think what he did for a living maybe. I think I guessed what he did for a living and it wasn't right. But then he certainly was forthcoming and told me. And then I said to him, I bet you're really comfortable with like PG&E stock, which is very, very traditional, very, very slow rising, you know. And he was. He had, I said, you got 90% of your portfolio in there? I would talk to him, you know. And he said, no. I said, less? And he said, yeah, about 70. And so we talked, and it was a great conversation. And he actually did send money later on. But to answer your question, that's what you do on the phone. It's no different. It can be visual. You can be totally sight impaired and blind. And you believe me, and you will hopefully deal with people like that in your life and serve them in design. That would just be so, so wonderful. So you can be totally sight impaired, and believe me, if you close your eyes now and just listen to me, you will have an impression of me. And you can make up more and more, and that will then create questions in your mind to ask the person. So, is that kind of clear? Is there any? Yes.
Do you ever, like, you know, when you hear someone's voice, like, you know, automatically, you know, relate them to someone you know with a similar voice, and, you know, kind of make assumptions that way?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And sometimes they really are similar too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you hear on the East Coast, the accents, you know, which aren't accents to you.
Yeah, it's weird. I've had people from, like, you know, the West Coast say that to me before, but I mean, I don't really see it. I don't see that accent.
But I do think that though, like
yeah.
When I'm here, my husband was cracking up. He sent my mom flowers while I'm here. He said, "Oh my God," he said, "I can certainly tell." I was like, "Yeah, okay. What's that? Okay, what do you want to sign? All right. Well, how do you spell that?" He said, "Oh, I can really tell." Went to San Francisco, but he would love it here. He's much more that kind of guy because he didn't have sisters. No, I'm just kidding. Any other comments or thoughts or anything at all? Yes.
What about your experiences of being interviewed yourself by somebody else?
You mean like what was it like?
Yeah. Or what are some pointers that you can use?
When I've been interviewed? Yeah. Okay, the interviews I'm thinking of, tell me if this is right, like for jobs, that type of thing? Yeah, God. Well, you can just really tell, and I'm sure you've all been through this, you can tell that the person is more committed to the question than they are to you and who you are, and really a feel for who you are, and I tend to shut down. That might really assist. That's a very, very good point, because that might actually assist everyone in interviewing the people that you're going to be serving through your design work, is remembering what that's like. And I can't remember her name, I'm sorry. I forgot your name again.
Kate.
Kate, yeah. But Kate, very clearly, that's my interview experience, is what she mentioned, that the person is, it's like a Taco Bell. May I help you thank you next? May I help you thank you next? You know, it's like we go to stores nowadays. Macy's. Oh, hi, welcome, how are you? And it's like a screensaver. You know, they couldn't care less how you are. You know what I mean? It's like, fine, thank you, or screw you, thank you. Oh, hi, how are you? You know, it's like that. So there's a lot of that. And I think this, the type of interviewing that I'm describing tends to eliminate that. So my experience in being interviewed is probably much like yours and Kate's. Their commitment is to get through the process, and they already know who they're going to hire. You know, that kind of thing, more than not. Anything else? Anybody? What's our next step now?
I think the actual interview. Like
the house managers, like.
I'm not sure.
Okay, you want me to
like to demonstrate an interview, or do you want to interview somebody to show how it's done?
Yeah, the only questions.
Go ahead.
Excuse us, just for 1 second.
The next, so that was what Diane's been describing as the groundwork. You know, how you prepare the ground of doing an interview, and the interviewing that she's done has been so particular to her studies. So what we thought was, we're going to create something together, and she's going to do an interview, but we need a volunteer of somebody she's just going to ask questions and sort of demonstrate how she might do an interview. So we need another volunteer.
And can we pick a topic? Oh, good. Are you going to volunteer?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, so it's Eduardo.
Right.
And then
what? Let's pick a topic.
Yeah, what topic should he be interviewed on?
What's for dinner? Your course.
What's that?
Your course.
You know what? That's good. Forget about it. How about?
What were you going to suggest?
Well, I'm just kind of thinking that maybe exploring,
It was.
Eduardo, exploring with Eduardo his profession, what his goals in life, and how that directs him towards a profession in life, or maybe multiple professions.
Does that sound good? His education and how he's directing his education towards his goals.
Yeah, I had a similar question that I was thinking of too before for different, maybe our A-class exercise, but maybe that like a 5-year plan, like which might be less extensive.
Like discovering with him what his 5-year plan might be.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and I also want you to know that typically, like I said, I read you, remember those questions I read you about the sober living homes, how long you've lived here, what's a good interaction event. You really need those. You need to, before you meet with the person that you're going to be working with, you really need to have, and I don't know if you're all going to do this together, but you need to have a set of questions so that you have an end goal. And that might be an assignment that you guys do, I don't really know. Okay, so I don't have that right now, so this will probably be a little sloppier. We might be able to do that, but, okay, so tell me again what it will be, what we're doing. It's going to be to discover his 5-year plan.
Yeah, I think it connects to what you were saying too about these professional goals.
Okay.
So that you can,
Okay, I feel like Oprah, okay? Or Skeeter in The Help. Anybody see The Help? That movie? Okay. So you would start out with, hi, my name's Diane Henderson.
Eduardo, pleasure to meet you.
And I'm going to be mixing up. Thank you for participating in our study of undergraduate and graduate students. For your time, we're going to pay you this much money, blah, blah, blah. Do you agree to do that? Okay. So, can I ask you, what brought you to this particular school?
I picked University of the Arts primarily because actually it has a foundation year, which was something I was looking for in an art school, but also just when I looked into the program, what I wanted to do. I actually came into the school as a photographic design double major, so that's what I was looking at the school.
Tell me kind of photograph.
Photography and graphic design. And so it was one of the few art schools that allowed you to do a double major in the area, which I wanted to stay in. Once I got in, and towards the end of summer, I really started looking into industrial design and what it was, and decided to pursue that.
Wow.
And I guess I was just fortunate to wind up here, which has a great program. So.
Okay, so like in high school, did you do a lot of, did you have a course in high school in photography, or?
My high school actually had a really good art department. I took a total of probably 9 or 10 different art classes throughout high school, so I was highly involved in that. But I was also doing a lot of like math and science as well, which I was really interested in. So it kind of just merged together in the end.
Can I ask you just like, what is it that draws you to art? Could you talk just a little bit about that?
I really like the whole art and conceptual abstract side of things, just because specifically what I'm interested in is kind of like spaces and environments, and I am really interested in the way that certain things and elements can really influence a space or a person. So looking at more of the interaction side of things as opposed to like physical, tangible projects.
Do you know Charlie Nowman? Have you ever heard of him? He used to do, it was amazing, he would do, he had art exhibits that were the space beneath the shelf.
Yeah.
Like, that guy. He was really, so you're interested in all of that kind of thing. So like in high school, did you study more, tell me more about like what you really enjoyed. Did you enjoy the art, or did you enjoy that?
I enjoyed the art, and I also enjoyed the technological aspect of the art. Being really into photography, I did a lot of just experimenting and kind of like using a camera and utilizing other things to create a camera. So I've always been more on like the tech end with like the science, which is always kind of just intertwined in my work. But I was definitely always like in the art realm.
Okay. And can you tell me or give me a little bit more of a feel for what it was like for you in high school?
I hated high school. I was really bright, but I just slacked off a lot and didn't do homework. My GPA was awful. My SAT saved me. Overall, high school was kind of a rush for me and trying to get out. And I was also the first person in my family to want to pursue art, so there was that whole side as well. Yeah.
Tell me more about that. What are they?
Everyone in my family is either involved in business or they're doctors. My older brother went to Columbia University for applied mathematics. We went to the same high school. He's 7 years older than I am, but he got straight A's, valedictorian of the school, so I had to compete with that in my family. Also, going up to my parents going, hey, I want to go to art school. It was like kind of a joke to them. So.
Is that still kind of the way it is?
No, because I've kind of proven myself to them. That like kind of showing them like, hey, this is what I want to do. Sorry, I'm going to do it, kind of. But they've definitely now been a lot more supportive. They just didn't like being outside that realm. They just didn't get it. So.
Yeah, because they've never really been exposed. Because you're the first one. Yeah. So like, how did you prove to them? Was there
my father being very involved in business and everything, for him, everything is proved within the numbers.
Right.
So in order for me to go to art school, he said, here's the Princeton Review list of the top 10 art schools in the country. You get into 5 of the list, that's enough, that like proves that you can do it, I guess. And then you can go to art school, so that's what I did. So I busted my ass off in the end of high school, got my shit together, and did it.
You did. And you got into all 5?
I got into, out of the 10, I got into 6.
Really?
I got into Pratt Parsons, I didn't get into RISD, I got into uArts, Savannah and Micah.
Wow. Okay, and so tell me about Pratt Parsons. What was the story there? Why you're here and not there?
I love New York. I have a lot of friends up in New York. When it came down to it, when I actually went to visit the schools, there just wasn't that environment. I didn't really click into it right away. It was very kind of like everyone was like their own thing, doing their own stuff. Whereas like here and growing like right outside of Philadelphia, I've always loved this city as well. And here was just much more of that creative openness where I feel, especially at Pratt, it was like a factory almost, like a factory for like creating people who can paint or like people who can do this. But like, I feel like if you gave them something like really creative to do, they'd stumble.
Isn't it amazing? I know my niece, when she walked onto the campus, had visited several campuses, walked onto the campus and boom, she knew she was home. First time in my life I didn't feel like an alien was I went to visit San Francisco and I was like, Mom, my car, you can have it, I'm never leaving. It was just like, you know when you're home.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like a really big deal.
Yeah.
So tell me more about like okay, if you had to pick 3 things, maybe say, that you would do professionally with your interests and with your education or without it, whatever.
Okay. My dream job would to be a Disney Imagineer. And then I would, I guess like 5-year goal, I guess, is I would love to start like a art design collective of people and like makers and thinkers and artists, but like that focus on bringing like design aspects into the more like fine arts world. Like that's where I want to be. I want to explore and merge these 2 elements together.
That's really interesting.
Like I said, my prime interest is like creating spaces and creating atmospheres and environments and ambiances and utilizing technology in order to create landscapes which can be experienced. And that's kind of my thing, is like that experience and kind of not forcing but establishing a set feeling or experience which you can then manifest in order for other people to feel and experience as well.
Okay, and so now, just so I really understand, so when you talk about landscapes, are you talking about actual landscapes that I would think of like outdoor landscapes or any type of landscapes, indoor?
They'd be any kind of space, whether it's like outside or it could be enclosed, but it would, I guess, greatly depend on what you're actually trying to achieve. But it could be even something just a dark room with just some music playing as well.
And tell me again, I want you to repeat other podcasts like this. When you do that, then people would be able to
experience. It's all about the experience, and maybe being able to create an experience that brings something out within the person, and like that would be kind of the design aspect of this is what I want to achieve, and then creating it through more of like a conceptual, like artistic way, and then seeing what happens.
As opposed to like nowadays, bringing something out in the person's, typically, tell me if I'm wrong in this thinking, I'm trying to make sure I'm following right, it would be through school, or through therapy, or drugs, or whatever, people, to bring things out in them that wouldn't normally come out would be maybe like that, whereas you're saying this is another way to do that?
Well,
kind of?
it's one hand, like you were saying with the education, and like giving somebody something,
Yeah.
and like that insertion produces something, whereas as opposed to just creating a general landscape, and then because of that, it's discovered on their own.
It emerges from them, as
Yes.
opposed to you're an empty vessel and the stuff that's in you.
Exactly.
Instead, you create the landscape so that
Exactly.
whatever it is that's in them that maybe you're totally unique or not or whatever will emerge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so you would do that with design.
With design and also with like artists, like primarily like fine artists as well, and people in technology. So
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing you said was to be engineering.
yeah, that'd be like my dream job.
Okay.
Sit there and just think of cool stuff.
And you can do all of them, you know what I mean? You may do that. And then, okay, the other one is to have like a collective of all these people with that consensual kind of
Yes.
objective. Okay, third.
Third. To cheaply make a buttload of money, drop design, and live in Europe somewhere.
Where?
Germany.
Really? Are you bilingual?
My entire family's from Brazil. I speak Portuguese, but I don't know German. I'm in the process of learning.
And did you ever live in Brazil?
Yes.
Till what age?
I was born here, but I lived in Brazil from when I was 1 to like 2.5, and then we moved back here again. So I don't really remember it, but I do go back every single year.
Do you? And both parents are Brazilian?
Yes.
Well, it's interesting because our mother is from Northern Ireland, and culture is truly transmitted through, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a professor at San Francisco State when I was in graduate school there, and she said to me, I always think there's something different about you. She said, you're first generation American on the wrong side. And so you're first generation American. And I don't know about you, but I truly know we were raised very differently.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very, very different experience. So that's really, really interesting. So, okay, so back to, so you would earn a buttload of money and be able to, that's how Brazil came out. Because I knew you were, anyway, yeah, so that's really interesting. I figured I knew you were somehow bilingual, but wow.
The name?
You weren't.
The name?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that was it. But there's other stuff too. I'm sure. Yeah. So yeah, and we have like dual citizenship with you too. Big deal. But that's much for us.
You go to Cuba.
Really, with the European passport?
Pretty sure they waxed it up, right? Oh no, I can go to Cuba.
Really?
Yeah.
So wait, so your passport's European? It's South American?
Yeah, I have a Brazilian passport.
You can go to Cuba.
Yeah, I can.
That's really cool.
Plan on it.
Yeah, okay, I'm just thinking of one more thing. So your 5-year plan was one of those 3 things, the buttload of money, and we're just thinking of, do you do any, like, do you game at all?
Pardon?
Do you play WoW or any of that stuff?
I used to be really into video games, not as much anymore. Now I'm highly involved in setting up party spaces with different event planning companies in the city.
Really? Outside in the real physical world? Wonderful. Look at that. Isn't it Prince Charles's wife, her family moved their money to her? Did you know that? Multi-millionaire. Did I? Well,
Wedding party?
yeah. Well, thank you so much. I love that. I love all of those things. I'm sure you will be successful. Yeah, I really do. And
Thank you.
anything more you can do?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
So much.
I stay there for a second. I mean, I think I'd like to ask everyone that's watching, what were some things you noticed maybe about Diane's behavior, and then also Eduardo? What happened maybe at the beginning versus towards the end, or did you guys notice any sort of shifts
Eduardo started opening up towards the end. I feel like he was kind of like keeping it pretty like business in the beginning, but then he started opening about his family and stuff in the end.
I think your body language too at first, like even the way you were talking was like a little choppy, and then all of a sudden it was just fluid and felt a lot more comfortable.
And that's what that's how you start out with anybody, with the people with whom your wonderful students will be working, with people that are so challenged in life. Oh my God, their lives are really rough. And so they're not going to be just like, yeah, it's going to be like that. And I'm like that too if somebody starts, talking with me. So that's a really, really good point. And that's to be expected.
Well, just an observation. I thought it was really cool how everything you said was just flowed and was really fluid, and you seemed to just be really articulate. So, not having pauses or that kind of thing, I think aided everything and just kind of him opening up more and being able to carry a conversation instead of just a typical interview that's question, just question and answer. Like a conversation, I guess.
And that's a really, really good point too, because there's open-ended questions that we've all learned in high school, like who, what, where, when, how, and you get an answer. And that's exactly what you're saying. You'll get, well, there is an answer. These kinds of questions, you don't just say, where do you live, why do you live there, how are you? It's really questions, I wonder. That's a really, really good one too, to wonder with someone. I wonder what it's like to have, I wonder what it's like to be bilingual. I wonder what it's like to have a mom from a different country. And the person will probably tell you. If somebody wondered with me, boy, howdy, I would really tell them about our mom, So wondering with the person, and you're really engaged with them. It's not a table in between the two of you. That's what I felt with him the whole time. It was a table here, that he and I are kind of laying it all out and talking and pushing things around, So, thank you.
I have a question. I think it was also interesting that you interjected a lot of your own, or sometimes some of your own stories or your own suggestions. And then what does that lend to the conversation, and when is that appropriate, or when is it maybe not appropriate?
Okay, and probably, let me ask you that. Let's ask him.
Yeah.
Because it's such a good question, and it's such a fine line. And I know, let me just say before you answer that in the interviewing that I have been doing for the Public Health Institute, none of that. I do nothing. All I do is listen, and I never would interject anything like that. So, just want to say that.
I think putting your own personal thing out there, it just what makes it way easier for the person you're talking to connect, because you instantly, like you said, versus just question answering, you become more human almost, and it's you have a little personal thing to connect with. So it also creates, you get rid of that boundary.
Yeah, and in our type of discussion is very different than having someone where we have a topic like a sober living home. I don't want to influence anything, about their experience of that. So I become as much of a, a lab-coated person as I possibly can in classes, just to really get out of it. You really want to get out of the way. Whereas with the work that you're doing, you do want to engage with the person, and it's not about you. But I found it really interesting because I felt something with him. I really did, even from your presentation. And then I realized, oh my God, yeah, he's first-generation American. Because there is something different about that, being Caucasian and first-generation American, or English-speaking and first-generation American, is very different than being visibly someone that maybe possibly, I had a roommate in San Francisco, wonderful Chinese guy, just loved him. 3 of us lived in this gorgeous Victorian, we had a ball all the time together, lived there for years. He was 5th-generation American, and he didn't speak Chinese. So it's an invisible kind of connection, but I knew, besides Eduardo, that was I thought, oh, maybe, I kind of knew. So in the kind of interviewing I think that you all are doing, with the qualitative interviewing with the wonderful people with whom you're going to be serving, really, you'll know, hopefully, when it is or isn't appropriate to say anything, to add to it. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
So when you're trying to get information from someone that's not personal information, in the other situation you're talking about with the sober homeless people, how do you use the story that you come up with in your head to influence your questions or your interaction with them?
I'm so glad you're asking. The way I use the story in my head is that I feel very connected to them because of the story in my head. They have become human. I don't know if you've heard of this. I used to work with San Francisco Police Department too, and I remember when we did office rape training and all that stuff. And one of the things they said is, if there's an attacker, whether it's any kind of an attacker, male, female, it doesn't even matter, you say, my name is Diane Henderson. My dad's over here in the hospital. You become a human being to that person, and there are less attacks when that is done. As opposed to, and you run. It's like and then you first say your name. My name's Diane Henderson. And you become a real person to them. So with the sober living homes, that person, because I'm thinking all that, right or wrong, about who they are, like Michael pointed out, doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, that is a person. So I'm really connected to them and listening in a different way than I would be, or in a different way than Kate's interviewer listened. If you recall, she was saying that the person was just sort of like typing out the answers. If that person had created her as a person, it would have been a very different connection. Did that answer your question? Okay. Are you sure?
Diane? I kind of heard in Mike's question, like, almost this, what if I'm uncomfortable, or, like I don't have the fluidity, like he was observing, very fluid, that, how do you overcome that if you're going to interview, because I'm just imagining the fear of, like there's a lot of pressure on an interviewer, like to keep it fluid, always have a response. Oh my God, it seems like you could freeze up doing that. Or is there anything to say about, not that it would ever happen to Mike. He's a master of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually happened to me. And what I've noticed when that's happened, and I'm thinking too, it's like anything terrible that can happen won't be happening to you. It's just life, you know what I mean? Life kind of sucks a lot. And, terrible things do happen and you do get stymied. But for that particular thing, what I noticed was when I was stymied and I was feeling like I was stuck, would be usually when I was thinking, oh, how am I doing? If my attention is on myself, I turn to dreck. I just turn to, what's a good word for poo? I just,
scat.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I just turn to scat. If you think about, I can even do that for you. I could show you. I'm going to show you what it's like. I'm just kidding. If you don't want to do order, I'm going to ask you another question. This is what it's like when I'm thinking about how am I doing. I'm going to really do that too, and you're going to see the difference. I can't do it with him because I'm already really connected with you, and I can't really. I don't know why. Yeah, somebody I don't even know. No. When you're thinking about yourself, okay, once I gave a speech, and there were like 200 people in the audience, and I'm like trucking along, and I'm like 2 minutes into it, and all of a sudden I realized these people were spellbound. And that was the instant, because they videotaped it, that was the exact instant that I turned to scat, as they will say. The minute you start thinking about yourself, you're going to become unfluid. The minute you start thinking about how am I doing, the minute you're not engaged. It's just that simple. And all I've told you about is ways to engage, really, that's all. And you may come up with your own ways to engage. The minute you think, how am I doing, I promise you the answer is you're not doing well. But the minute you engage and wonder, man, what's life like for someone in a country where everybody's been assimilated? Most of the people watch certain shows on TV, they go to bed at a certain time, they all know each other, they're just in a totally different culture. It's going to be very fluid because you're interested. And it's really that simple. It's really that simple.
Do you have a trick to pull yourself out of that? Because I think it can also be kind of a negative. Like in a speech situation, you can be like, oh God, the people, and then you're like, I'm rocking back and forth, and I'm picking this thing, and oh my God. And you start noticing more. Right. How do you pull yourself out?
Okay, I'll tell you exactly how I do it. And I want to give you a trick too. I'll come right back to that. Okay, I am like incredibly photogenic. People will see a picture of me, and then they see me and they go, oh. Know how to take a terrible picture. Or why you take a terrible picture? It's because you're thinking, how do I look? How do I look? I promise. And you can do it with your iPhone, right? It's the break or whatever. How am I look? Do I look good? Should I smile right? You're going to look like an ass, excuse me. You do, every time. And if you start thinking about the most wonderful experience you had, or your, someone you love, or your dog, or, just something that is really beautiful, man, your picture is flawless. So again, I bring that up because it's, the more you stay inside yourself, the more things don't work. It's all about engaging in life and engaging in society. Whether it's physically with the person or thinking about others. So the way you pull yourself out of it. The way you pull yourself out of it is you immediately say, oh God, I'm thinking about myself. And you immediately, if you're speaking to a group, you pick one person. And you just think, man, I wonder what his mother's like. Does she love him? Is he treated special? I mean, and you can tell. You can tell the people that are loved and favored. You can tell the people that are just like neglected and out there. Any trick that's going to work for you to get you on someone else. It's just away from you and onto the other. Because I totally know what you're talking about. It's just like, oh, it's awful. And I was scared to death. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to give a speech. It's really, really hard. And I thought, oh, I don't even have to think about me. I'll just tell them what I know. And that really, really helped. So I haven't struggled with it today because this is such an interesting group. And so interesting, I think, the work you guys are engaged in. Truly, truly, truly. My heart is with the homeless. When I first, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Now get dorky. But my degree was in psychology. I did psychophysiological research, and then it was all research, and I was supposed to go to Hopkins, and I had this big fat grant. I just wanted to work with people. And so I did heroin detox counseling at the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic in the early 70s. And I've always loved working with people. Currently, and I've done all kinds of different jobs, but currently, someone very close to me has lost all their vision. And I'm struck by how marginalized this person is, and they're in the hospital. And this was a very charming person who would engage you in a minute with his eyes, a gentleman above all gentlemen. And now I see people just sort of like yelling. And I just want to put up a big sign, you can't see, but you can hear. And asking me, well, what's the social security number? And it's just like, oh God, he can tell you. It's amazing the marginalization we have for people who are from a different country. People who have an accent, people who are blind, people who are in wheelchairs. The marginalization is unbelievable. So I'm very deeply admirable of this course and what you're doing. So it was a privilege, truly, truly, to be here with you and my brothers. So what else? How much time we got left?
Any other questions? Willow? Oh, there we go.
Was it the other way around?
Ben.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I feel like we've been doing some interviews in MID, and so I feel like a lot of the time it starts off, the conversation is something where the person who we're interviewing is saying things that are kind of like maybe what they want us to hear, or like they're kind of like dressed to impress, or like it's not really like as honest of an answer as what we're looking for. But later, as the interview develops, they kind of open up, and the answers become more genuine. Is there a way to kind of get to that point quicker?
Okay, first I'm going to ask you, what's MID?
On master's. I'm in the master's program.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Do you mind moving up a little further because my contacts aren't going up?
Sure.
Thanks. And can you just give me a little more specifics too? I want to know like who you're come up closer with.
So I'm working with Penn Medical on some stuff about like just trying to get them to communicate better in their system and stuff like that. So what we're doing is we're going in, we're talking to people and seeing like,
are they doctors? Are they patients?
Everybody. It's nurses. We talk to nurses, people who work at the university in veterinary classes, to people who work in the call center, and everything in between. So what we're trying to do is figure out maybe if there's a trend in some obstacles that they're facing, regardless of what position they work in. Mm-hmm. And so the questions that we're asking are like, what is your day like? What is your experience like in your day? I mean, trying to figure out like, are they sitting in front of a computer the majority of their day, or are they walking around a lot, or are they talking to people directly face to face? And so, you know, a lot of those answers are like, well, I do this kind of work, and this is my title, and these are who I work for, and this is that. But like, you know, that's like, when we get to the meat of it, and we get those genuine answers, like, that's what's really going to be helpful and productive for us.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now let me ask you, like, can you think just offhand of like a really good meaty answer that you felt like, God, I nailed it on that one. That guy really, or one of the...
Towards the end of one of our interviews, one of the gentlemen that I interviewed started talking about the culture there within the system, and he was saying how it'll take him 20 minutes to formulate an email, not because he doesn't know how to express the problem that he needs to be addressed, but rather because he needs to express it in a way that doesn't step on anyone's toes of who this email is going out to. So like, he was explaining how the politics that are rampant in the system impede on the productivity. And like, he obviously might not be as willing to share that type of information because he might be trying to figure out what our motives are. And we explain ourselves when we get in there, but I think as the interview develops and he sees how we react and where the direction of our questions, then he's more comfortable with, oh, okay, these people are trying to help us, and this might be helpful if I share this.
Can I give me an idea too? Because I'm actually thinking, like we actually said with the sober living homes, we would actually come right out and say, and I'm thinking, wondering if you say something like this, tell me a really terrible interaction with a neighbor. Tell me in different words, or tell me the best interaction that you had with a neighbor. And I'm wondering if you have any questions kind of that point in that direction, like what's a really good day for you? What is one of the most frustrating things that you face in a day? And it isn't like really, I mean, it's not a yes or no answer, and it's not as qualitative, but kind of tell me a little bit more about a day. I would probably do something like that. Tell me, I would like to know a little bit more about, go to extremes, and they're going to be somewhere in the middle or extremes. I would probably say, you know, if you're allowed to change your questions as you go.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. But what, like, I guess what my problem is, like, how do you balance leading them in asking a question, and like, if I ask them, tell me about something that is like the most frustrating part of your day, and that's one of the first questions, does that then set a tone of, now they're going to be thinking about all of these frustrating things, whereas like, we also want to know what's going on that's right.
Well, I can just tell you from experience, okay, and I probably, this is a really good question and concern, but because we do that, I would probably start out with the more positive, but people are able to shift like you wouldn't believe. If I say to you, because language, there's so much about language, okay, let me just think. What was the most beautiful sunset you ever saw? Where was that? What was the most beautiful? Can you picture it? Do you picture it when I'm saying that or no?
It just sounds like really fluffy. And, I mean, it's like I don't take it as like a genuine. I don't know what you're trying to ask of me. So
no, but you felt like fluffy, whatever.
Right.
Now I'm going to say to you, have you ever seen someone actually be stabbed? Do you get the difference in the feelings? Yeah. You had no problem shifting from one feeling to another. So when you ask someone a question, and it's a good point, but you might start out with the more positive and then go to the negative. And I don't know, because we didn't do it that way, but if I had started out with, do you ever see somebody be stabbed, and then go to the most beautiful sunset, there might be some sort of leaking in there and a little toxicity, I don't know.
Right.
So you might want to start out with the more positive, but definitely get in. I mean, you really do want to know, it sounds like in your study, what is it that frustrates you? What would be the most frustrating day? And what would be an ideal day for you?
Well, we ask those questions even exactly about like what is a frustrating thing in your day, but those we ask in a different manner, and that's with like something that we leave behind where they have the opportunity to like draw a visual representation of something that's frustrating for them. So, I mean, I don't want to steal, you know, this discussion from, you know, everyone else, but it's just like we address those. It's just like a balance of what should we ask directly in person and what maybe would be more.
What do you mean by steal? You're not stealing anything.
I mean, like I don't want to go off on a tangent about what I'm specifically doing.
Does anybody else have a question? No. You're contributing.
Mine relates. I have one that
usually if one person has a question in a class, especially 20 people or more, if there's somebody else there who's wondering the same thing. So go ahead.
So I guess what I'm saying is like we felt like maybe some of those questions they wouldn't feel as comfortable answering for those very same reasons that it takes so long to develop a report for them to open up that we came up with a packet that we could leave behind for them where they had the opportunity they had a disposable camera and they have a little packet of like 7 pages or so. Each page has like a different thing. Draw the most frustrating part of your day. Draw a scenario of how you feel in your work environment. And there are a few opportunities for them to do that on their own where maybe they don't feel like they're put on the spot by being in front of a stranger who's trying to extract these potentially sensitive topics.
Can I ask you, is there two thoughts? Okay, one's about confidentiality and the other's about the response you get from the packet and the camera.
We have yet to get those back. That's fairly recent. So.
Okay, now, do you do a confidentiality thing with them?
Yeah, we explain to them.
Do they sign it, or you sign it?
No. There's not a signature or formal statement or anything like that. It's more of like we make it very clear that we are not affiliated with
nothing in writing.
It's like no, it's just with us. This isn't for Penn Medical. They're completely separate from us. And I guess we never considered having a signed waiver of any sort.
I'm just telling you, I'm here to tell you, I really believe that we would have had different responses if we didn't have, and you just can make it up yourself, a consent form. And what you're doing is they're giving a consent, and you're guaranteeing in there, I could show you ours if you'd like after class, and it's just a consent form to be in your study.
Yeah.
Dated, you sign it, they sign it, and you guarantee, you know, how they're contributing, how they're not contributing, or what they're not contributing. And you definitely, probably in the first paragraph, I think we have it, anonymity. You know, and then when it's signed, the Declaration of Independence wouldn't mean squat if it wasn't signed by all those people. So there is something about having something in writing, I think, a commitment in writing. So that might help you. That might help you. And I'd be interested and curious to know about the response from, you know, because people just don't want to do stuff, okay?
Very enthusiastic at first when we give it to them, like, oh, this is great.
The camera and the...
This is great. This is something that we don't have these type of tools to, you know, no one ever gives us things like this. This is something that's so new, and they're really excited about it. But, like, even the first people that we gave it to, and it was for the sake of, like, almost as like a proposal, like, this is what we're going to be doing throughout the system. We've had to ask them for those back like several times.
Have you gotten them?
We've gotten one out of 3 of the first set, and it's for it's for their advantage, like it's for them specifically, and they are.
People, you know what it is? People experience that as work.
Yeah, it's like homework.
Exactly.
And also, it's like homework. Asking them to draw.
I can't draw.
And we explain that to them. We say if you can't, we're not expecting anything elaborate. If you want to use stick figures, that's fantastic. If you want to use words instead, that's okay too.
Yeah, I love your intention, truly, and I'm thinking that you all, your committee or whatever, you might want to rethink another way because you haven't gotten it back, and that's just my gut feeling. It's like if somebody gave that to me, I'm like, we can't really draw. And it would be just like a task and something, a commitment that I have to fulfill, and it would be a chore.
Right.
It wouldn't be the pleasure of talking with you.
Right.
I think that's a really important thing too, like the pleasure of talking. Like I think maybe it's less about worrying about if you're taking an extra 20 minutes of their time in person, but they're never going to go back to this other thing. And I think, I mean, you can compare it to, you guys are a slightly different generation, but I think you can compare it to also the time you waste texting back and forth or writing an email, having to put it in words to send an email to somebody to answer a simple question versus just picking up the phone and calling them is very different. And maybe it is just the face-to-face interaction that oftentimes might just work best.
Since you're doing a lot of like face-to-face interactions, and it seems like people do get more comfortable like over the time of the interview, could you add like silly, like non-meaningful, like fluff questions, like in the beginning, you think, and that kind of will like they don't really mean anything to you, but just by having like a couple lines of dialogue down already, and then starting to ask like the questions you want, like, do you think that would help?
Now I'm not sure. My gut is no, but just tell me like a fluff question. Just anything.
You kind of, I get what you're saying. It kind of like changes the tone of the dialogue, you know, from like a formal meeting to like, oh, this has been scheduled. I'm meeting with these people and stuff, and now you can change the tone just by asking.
You can chat with them. I mean, I chat with people, and then I get on, and we have a little tape recorder, and then so it's a form of the fluff question.
You can chat, but I'm thinking like maybe have questions that seem like they relate to what you're doing, but you really don't need them at all.
Okay, now give me an example because I'm not sure I did.
I think what he's really saying is if the first 1, 2, 3 questions are kind of these stiff answers, or I think in your case too, we have a reading that we can actually share with you too, right? About the people that are in larger institutions oftentimes they feel like they're representing the institution, and so you get this kind of, what you were saying, that you get those answers first before you get to them as a person, or as an individual. But maybe Eduardo, like saying, if you want 3 pieces of information, to maybe bury it further down so that they're warmed up by the time you get those answers, and so you don't get kind of the cold answer at first.
Yeah.
And then you've lost it.
Did you want to add to that? To this?
I was just basically going to say what she was going to say.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
No,
I was just saying that maybe ask the less meaningful questions if it makes sense in that order still first, and then then as the person sort of opens up, I feel like it's more important to have your more meaningful questions towards the end, because then you get more genuine response.
Okay, so like for you, what would be like a less meaningful question for the stuff you kind of get
I guess like little things like maybe like how long you've been here.
Oh, gotcha. Personal.
Yeah, like I mean, maybe not necessarily personal, but personal relating specifically to what they're working in. So questions about them with the company, but nothing like with them outside the company.
It might also redirect them to being that individual. Like you're actually getting them on the path to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, how long have you been here? Maybe like have you been in the same position the entire time?
Oh my God, it's so not fluff. I thought you were going to say you like the Eagles or
no,
Giants,
no.
you know.
Just fluff that's like, it's like, yeah, it's data, but it's not really like the meaningful questions that you're trying to get.
Yeah, but you're accomplishing a lot by that because you are really connecting with that person. It's like, I acknowledge I'm speaking with you, who are you, and now I'm really interested in your opinion about things. And that is a really good way to do it as opposed to just diving in. You might want to talk with him a little more. It's really good. You get what he's saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
yeah.
absolutely.
Truly about that person and professionally.
Right.
How long have you been here? What brought you to this institution? Have you worked elsewhere? How was that? What is it you like and don't like? All the fluff, but it's neat.
I was going to say, wouldn't it maybe be more helpful to start off with questions that are only about them, not related to the company, so that they realize it's not about the company? Like, where are you from? Like, do you have a cat? Stuff like that.
I just need to be careful though about, like, it's not diving too deep into the personal life. So sometimes that can feel less comfortable.
Yeah, like, why do they want to know what I'm doing? Why do they want to know? It can go either way.
Yeah, and it would depend upon the interview. Like for his particular study that he's doing, I think that what Eduardo was saying is probably really appropriate because it does connect the guy or the woman to the institution. It's like, what brought you here? Where else have you been? Where'd you go to school? And then it will go into, so we're talking to you. We acknowledge you're an individual with desires and choices in life, and we're also very interested in how's your day? Blah, 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 blah. That's excellent. Don't ever call that fluff. That was really good. Yeah. And then his point is really good too, because it's a different type of study though, Amanda, would be like maybe the study that I'm involved in with maybe the women, when I'm interviewing the women in the sober living homes. Yeah, we definitely do that. So it's really going to depend upon the type of study. They're all appropriate or inappropriate given the right or wrong conditions, Somebody actually said that to me the other day. There was an occupational therapist interviewing this person that I mentioned that has gone blind, and he's unable right now to feed himself in the hospital. And I was so concerned. And she said, he had a fall, his vision hasn't changed since the fall. So why is he not feeding himself? She said, let me tell you the answer. Because I'm thinking, oh my God, he's never going to be able to feed himself again. She said he's lived in the same home for 50 years. He has the right light conditions. He's sitting at the right height, or the right body stature, whatever, the right positioning of his body. His table's at the right height. He's adapted everything so that he will always be able to feed himself there. Anyone becomes disabled given the right conditions or the wrong conditions. So So then again, your questions will be right in the writing study.
I was gonna say, how do you engage people? Like, we have to do a lot of interactions on the streets. So when we go out to the street, and mostly the people that want to talk to us are either really old or they're really young. There's like no middle-aged people that want to talk to us, and they always think that we're trying to sell them something,
Right.
and they just don't want to talk. How do you engage people like that without the fact of being good-looking or, you know?
Yeah. Tell me what you have to do. This is for this class?
I mean, most of our projects involve getting feedback from people. So we like to just go out for a day, you know, stand on the streets and interview random people that walk by. I could give you an example. Like, we did seasonal fruit or charrette. So we interviewed people and we asked them what kind of fruit they like, and we gave them a little brochure to buy and kind of promote seasonal fruit. And then we thought maybe giving out food would invite more people, but it actually didn't make much of a
Isn't that
difference.
fun? Okay, the only thing I can relate to is that to interview neighbors of sober living homes, oh my God, it was terrible. I felt like the Bible sales lady or the Mormon. It was awful. And we actually wore skirts at first. We did by accident, and it was like, oh, I thought you were a Mormon because there's a skirt on. It was like we had to really watch what we wore. It was horrible knocking on the doors. Two old ladies, you know, hi, my name's Diane Henderson. They're like, oh my God, terrible. So what we did was, and if people weren't interested, and I would just immediately say my name, and so I'm just working through this to see if I have an answer. And I would say, this is Melissa Andrews, we're with the Public Health Institute, we're interested in sober living homes, because the first 5 seconds is the most important thing. And if they were just like, you can tell right away they don't want to talk to you, or they do, I'd be like, okay, bye, and I would leave. You know, it's like you may have to get through 9 of those people to get to the one that is actually going to be, you know, the one that will talk to you. But, so what do you think? Can you say, I'm with University of the Arts? What do you say?
I usually say, hi, I'm with University of the Arts, and we're doing a survey. But then, as soon as like people started drifting away, some people started talking to us. It just like, it went to a sentence where, do you want some fruit? And then it started from there, because I feel like people need things in order to, you know, give them your attention.
Yeah. But they are suspicious. I know you're right. Like, if you want to give them fruit, they're immediately like, yeah. I mean, if I had something in my hand to give people when I knocked on the door, they probably would have immediately, hi, here's the Bible, or something. You know, people really hate that. So I'm just thinking, my advice would be, because I don't have an answer, I have to really think about it. My advice would be, is class over?
Soon.
Okay. Tell me what so you were, say for instance, give me an example of maybe the next time you'll have to do this. What will you be doing?
I think I would maybe print out colorful brochures.
No, I mean, is it for a charrette or is it?
This was specifically for charrette, but we do this a lot depending on the projects because we like to get feedback from people.
Yeah.
I think one suggestion would be Broad Street is probably not the best place to stop people. They're moving. They're going from point A to point B. There's no downtime. Someone that's sitting on the bench at the park. I think maybe to find people that are
Occupy Philadelphia. They got a whole captive audience.
They got opinions.
But I mean, I think that might be it. To be really smart about where you're going. I mean, go to a bag business. Go to a person that has a sewing business. Go to a store that sells bags. Like things like that, I think would be, or like Whole Foods. If you were out in front of Whole Foods with your fruit, it's very different than someone giving people fruit cups on a dirty street in the middle of the city, right? I mean, it's not the thing where people
Really with poison in it, probably.
Yeah.
That's so good. Whole Foods, like for bags. All I want is when I walk into the supermarket, because I got loads of bags in my car, right? They do that here, right? You bring your own bag. Okay. Instead, I just want them to write in big letters, this big, bag. I don't want, did you remember your bag? As soon as I see bag, I go, oh my God, and I go back and get my bag. But that would be a great place, if it's a bag thingy, to just, did you remember your bag? We'd love to know your opinion about bags, or something like that. But I don't really have a good answer. But maybe you all could brainstorm about that. That's a really, because that is the toughest thing. Because you don't have an appointment with them, and you're just standing there on the street like people from Yeah, it's hard. But I loved what your professor said. That is really true. An appropriate, a subject appropriate or a topic appropriate geographic location. Right?
Well, that's about all we have time for today, folks. But let's thank our brilliant speaker.
All our volunteers.
Yes.
Yes, our volunteers were fabulous. So,
Homework.
we did all the other things that we were going to do.